The Galactic Collective had existed for over 9 million cycles. It was a union of 742 species spread across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They had mapped billions of stars and cataloged trillions of planets. They believed they understood the rules of life itself. They believed they knew where sentient beings could emerge and where they could not. Class 3 planets were considered dead zones. These were worlds with extreme conditions, high radiation levels, unstable tectonic plates, violent weather patterns, poisonous atmospheres filled with reactive gases. The collective had declared long ago that no intelligent life could ever evolve on such hostile worlds. The science was settled. The matter was closed. Ambassador Hose of the species had served the collective for over 200 cycles. His species was among the oldest in the Alliance. They had 4 hearts, 6 limbs, and skin that changed color with their emotional state. Hose was stationed at Observation Post 12, a lonely outpost on the edge of explored space. His job was to monitor nearby star systems for any signs of activity that might interest the collective. It was boring work. Nothing ever happened in this region of the galaxy. On what seemed like an ordinary day, everything changed. His young assistant, a technician named, was running routine scans of a small yellow star approximately 40 light cycles away. The star was unremarkable. It had 8 planets orbiting it. The third planet from the star was a Class 3 world, blue and green with swirling white clouds, beautiful to look at but deadly by every known measure. Noticed something strange in the data. He ran the scan again. Then he ran it a third time. His skin turned pale blue with confusion. "Ambassador," he called out, "I am detecting an artificial signal from the Class 3 planet in Sector 7. Hose did not look up from his work. "Clean your equipment. Class 3 planets do not produce artificial signals. There is no life there." "I have cleaned the equipment 3 times, Ambassador. The signal remains. It is structured. It repeats in patterns. It is definitely artificial." Now Hose looked up. He walked slowly to the young technician's station and studied the readings himself. His 4 hearts began to beat faster. His skin shifted to a worried shade of orange. The signal was real. It was coming from the third planet of that small yellow star. Someone was down there. Someone was broadcasting into space. "This is not possible," Hose said quietly. "The radiation alone would kill any known species within days. The atmosphere contains oxygen, one of the most corrosive gases in the universe. The planet experiences constant seismic activity. Its star bombards it with harmful rays. Nothing could survive there. And yet something is transmitting, Ambassador." Hose stood in silence for a long moment. He understood that this discovery would send shockwaves through the entire collective. For millions of cycles, they had believed that life followed certain rules. It needed calm environments, stable climates, protection from radiation. If something had evolved on a Class 3 world, then everything they knew was wrong. He made a decision. He would not report this immediately. First, he needed proof. He needed to see with his own eyes what manner of creature could survive such a hostile environment. He contacted the nearest military station and requested a stealth observation vessel. The commander there, a stern female officer named, took the call personally. "You want me to send a ship to a Class 3 planet because you detected a signal?" she asked. Her tone was doubtful. "Ambassador, you know as well as I do that no life exists on such worlds. Your equipment must be malfunctioning." "I have checked the equipment many times, Commander. The signal is real. I am asking you to investigate before I make a formal report to the Collective Council. If I am wrong, then no harm is done. If I am right, then we have discovered something that will change everything." Was silent for a moment. She was a practical officer. She did not believe in mysteries or impossible things, but she had served with Hose before. He was not a fool. He was not prone to wild claims. "Very well," she said finally. "I will lead the mission myself. If there is truly something on that death world, I want to see it with my own eyes." The stealth vessel departed 3 cycles later. It was equipped with the most advanced cloaking technology the collective possessed. It could observe a planet for months without being detected, or so they believed. During the journey through subspace, reviewed everything the collective knew about Class 3 planets. The information was limited because no one had ever studied them closely. Why would they? Nothing lived there. The reports described extreme temperature variations, massive storms that covered entire continents, oceans filled with salt and minerals that would dissolve most organic material, mountains that spewed molten rock into the sky. It was a nightmare world by any reasonable standard. Her second-in-command, a tactical specialist named Os, shared her doubts. "This is a waste of resources," he said. "We should be patrolling the border regions, not chasing ghost signals on dead planets." "Perhaps," replied, "but Ambassador Hose has never been wrong before. If he says the signal is real, then I believe him. We will investigate and prove him wrong. Then we can return to our normal duties." The journey took 12 cycles. When they finally arrived at the small yellow star, they took up position behind the system's largest gas giant. From there, they activated their long-range sensors and began scanning the third planet. What they found made its blood run cold. The planet was not empty. It was covered with lights, billions of lights, cities, roads, ships sailing across the deadly oceans, aircraft flying through the poisonous atmosphere, and in orbit around this impossible world there floated the largest artificial structure had ever seen. It was a vessel, a space vessel, made of primitive metal alloys that the collective had abandoned thousands of cycles ago. Yet it was enormous, over 2 kilometers in length, and it was not alone. Hundreds of smaller vessels moved around it like insects around a hive. Something lived on this death world. Something had not only survived there but had built a civilization. Something had looked up at the stars and decided to reach for them. Stared at the readings in complete silence. Her skin had turned white with shock. Everything she believed about life in the universe had just been proven wrong. "By the ancient stars," Os whispered beside her. "What are they?" Did not answer. She did not know, but she was going to find out. Commander ordered her vessel to move closer. They maintained their cloak and positioned themselves in a stable orbit far from the alien ships. From this distance, they could observe without being detected. At least that was the plan. For 3 full cycles, they watched and listened. They intercepted communications. They studied the strange beings that lived on this death world. They tried to understand how any of this was possible. The creatures called themselves humans. They called their planet Earth. They called their star the Sun. Simple names for a species that should not exist. Spent every waking moment studying them. She learned that humans were carbon-based that breathed the corrosive oxygen in their atmosphere. Their bodies were fragile by collective standards. They had only one heart. Their bones could break from simple falls. Their skin offered almost no protection from radiation or extreme temperatures. They lived for less than 100 of their own years, which was barely a blink compared to most collective species. By every measure, humans were weak, yet they had conquered their deadly world. The large vessel in orbit was called the Vanguard. According to intercepted communications, it was humanity's first true interstellar ship. They had built it to travel to other stars. They were planning to leave their home system and explore the galaxy. Commander Daniel Hayes led the Vanguard. He was a human male in his 5th decade of life. His face was lined with age and marked with scars from old injuries. His hair had turned gray at the sides. By human standards, he was no longer young. By collective standards, he was practically a newborn. Watched him through the ship's long-range visual sensors. He moved with confidence through the corridors of his vessel. His crew respected him. They followed his orders without question. He had the bearing of a leader who had earned his position through experience rather than birth. His first officer was a female human named Karen Mitchell. She was younger than Hayes but carried herself with equal confidence. She handled the daily operations of the ship while Hayes focused on the larger mission. Together, they made an effective command team. The ship's chief science officer was called Cole. He was a quiet man who spent most of his time in the research laboratories. He was obsessed with understanding the universe. He asked questions constantly and was never satisfied with easy answers. Found him interesting. He reminded her of herself in her younger days. The tactical officer was a large human male named Bell. He was responsible for the ship's weapons and defenses. He took his job seriously. He ran drills constantly and demanded perfection from his team. The Vanguard was a ship of exploration, but Bell treated it like a warship. He was always ready for a fight. Learned that humans had only achieved powered flight approximately 150 of their years ago. Before that, they had been bound to the surface of their planet. In just 150 years, they had gone from wooden ships and horse-drawn vehicles to constructing vessels that could travel between stars. The collective had taken over 10,000 cycles to make the same journey. Humans had done it in less than 2 centuries. The speed of their advancement was terrifying. Oz studied their history and found it even more disturbing than their technology. They are a violent species, he reported too. They have fought wars against each other throughout their entire existence. They have weapons capable of destroying their own planet. They came very close to extinction multiple times, not from natural disasters but from their own conflicts. Yet they survived, observed. Yes, each time they came close to destroying themselves, they pulled back at the last moment. They seem incapable of giving up. Even when facing total annihilation, they find a way to continue. Thought about this. The collective species had evolved beyond violence long ago. They resolved disputes through negotiation and diplomacy. The idea of intelligent beings making war against their own kind was disturbing, yet she could not deny that it had made humans strong. They had been tested by fire again and again. Each test had made them harder to kill. She learned about their planet's history. Earth had tried to destroy humanity many times. Ice ages had covered their world in frozen death. Massive rocks from space had struck their planet and caused mass extinctions. Supervolcanoes had erupted and blocked out their sun. Diseases had swept through their population and killed millions. The planet itself seemed determined to wipe them out. Yet humans had survived everything. They had adapted. They had invented tools to overcome each obstacle. When the cold came, they built shelters and made fire. When disease struck, they developed medicine. When the resources of one region were exhausted, they moved to another. They refused to accept defeat. The most remarkable thing discovered was that humans actively sought out danger. They climbed their highest mountains even though many died in the attempt. They descended to the crushing depths of their oceans just to see what was there. They strapped themselves to rockets filled with explosive fuel because they wanted to reach space. They did not avoid the dangerous parts of their world. They conquered them. On the 4th cycle of observation, Cole was working in his laboratory aboard the Vanguard. He was analyzing data from a probe they had sent to a nearby planet. He noticed something strange in the readings, a small energy fluctuation that should not have been there. He ran the scan again. The fluctuation appeared in the same location. Something was orbiting Earth that was not supposed to be there. Something that was trying very hard not to be seen. Cole immediately contacted the bridge. Commander Hayes, I am detecting an anomalous energy signature approximately 40,000 kilometers off our port side. It appears to be a cloaked vessel of unknown design. On the bridge, Daniel Hayes felt his heart beat faster. First contact. Every human had dreamed of this moment. They had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. Can you get a visual? He asked. Negative, sir. Their cloaking technology is beyond anything we have. but they are definitely there. The energy signature is unmistakable. Karen Mitchell moved to stand beside Hayes. Orders, Commander. Hayes thought for a long moment. Whoever was out there had been watching them. They could have attacked at any time, but they had not. That suggested they were curious rather than hostile. If humanity was going to join a larger galactic community, this was the moment that would define their place in it. Do not power up weapons, he ordered. Do not make any aggressive moves. If they wanted us dead, we would already be dead. Then what do? Bell asked from his tactical station. Hayes looked out at the stars through the main viewport. Somewhere out there, invisible to his eyes, another species was watching him. They were probably scared. They were probably confused. They had probably never encountered anything like humanity before. He smiled. We say hello. Aboard the observation vessel, alarms began to sound. Rushed to the command center and found her crew in a state of panic. Their cloak had failed for just a fraction of a second. A tiny fluctuation in their power systems had created a momentary gap in their invisibility field. It had lasted less than half a heartbeat. But the humans had detected them. They are scanning our position, Oss reported. His voice was tight with fear. Their sensors are primitive but effective. They know we are here. Felt cold dread wash through her body. This was not supposed to happen. They were supposed to observe and report. They were not prepared for contact. The collective had strict protocols for first contact situations. None of those protocols applied to a species from a Class 3 world because such species were not supposed to exist. Prepare for immediate withdrawal, she ordered. Maximum speed back to collective space. The engines powered up. The vessel began to turn away from Earth. They would escape before the humans could react. They would return to the safety of known space and let the Council decide what to do about this impossible discovery. Then something unexpected happened. The human ship began broadcasting. The transmission was simple. It was a series of numbers, prime numbers arranged in a specific sequence, then mathematical constants, pi, the golden ratio, universal truths that any intelligent species would recognize. The humans were not attacking. They were not panicking. They were trying to communicate. Ordered her crew to stop the retreat. She stood in silence and listened to the human transmission. It repeated over and over, a greeting written in the language of mathematics, a hand extended in friendship across the void of space. What are your orders, Commander? Oss asked. He was still pushing for retreat. His tactical training told him that an unknown species should be treated as a threat until proven otherwise. Did not answer immediately. She was thinking about everything she had learned about humans in the past 4 cycles. They were violent. They were unpredictable. They came from a death world that should have killed them 1,000 times over. By every standard measure, they were dangerous. But they were also curious. They were reaching out instead of attacking. They wanted to talk. Hold position, finally said. Respond to their transmission. Use the same mathematical sequences they sent us. Commander, protocol requires us to report to the Council before initiating contact with an unknown species. Protocol did not anticipate a species like this. We have already been detected. Running away now would only make them suspicious. If we respond peacefully, we establish a foundation for future relations. Oss was not happy, but he followed orders. The observation vessel transmitted its own mathematical sequence. The universal language of numbers flowed between 2 species who had never seen each other before. On the Vanguard, Cole watched the response come through. His hands were shaking with excitement. This was the moment humanity had waited for since they first looked up at the stars. They were not alone. There was other intelligent life in the universe, and that life was willing to talk. They responded, he announced to the bridge. They are using the same mathematical framework we established. Commander, they understand us. Daniel Hayes nodded slowly. He had trained for this moment, but nothing could truly prepare someone for first contact. Every word he spoke, every action he took, would be remembered throughout human history. The pressure was enormous, but he felt strangely calm. "Continue the dialogue," he ordered. "Try to establish a shared vocabulary. Basic concepts first. Numbers, then shapes, then objects. We need to build a common language." Karen Mitchell coordinated the effort. Human linguists and scientists worked together to create a simple communication system. They sent images paired with mathematical symbols: a circle with the number 1, a triangle with the number 3, a human figure with a simple designation. The aliens responded in kind. They sent images of their own, strange creatures with multiple limbs and skin that seemed to shimmer in different colors, their ships, their technology. Bit by bit, two species began to understand each other. The process took several human days. Both sides worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between their worlds. Every small success was celebrated. Every misunderstanding was carefully corrected. Slowly, painfully, a crude form of communication emerged. Learn the human word for greeting: hello. Such a simple sound. She practiced saying it, though her vocal apparatus was not designed for human speech. She learned their names: Hayes, Mitchell, Cole, Bell, strange sounds that meant nothing to her but were precious to the beings who carried them. She learned what they called their vessel, the Vanguard. It meant the leading force of an advancing army. Even their ship's names spoke of their aggressive nature, yet they had not attacked. They had not threatened. They had simply reached out and said hello. On the 5th day of communication, made a decision. She would meet the humans in person. She would board their primitive vessel and look into their strange, soft eyes and try to understand what made them so different from every other species in the galaxy. As objected strongly. "Commander, this is far beyond our authority. You are risking your life and the lives of our crew. These beings are unknown. They are unpredictable. They evolved on a Class 3 world. Who knows what they are capable of?" "That is exactly why I must go," replied. "The collective will have many questions about this species. I need to provide answers. I cannot do that from a distance." "At least let me accompany you. If something goes wrong, you will need protection." Considered this. As was a skilled warrior. His presence would provide some security, but she also knew that bringing an armed soldier might send the wrong message to the humans. "You may come," she decided, "but you will leave your weapons on the ship. We go in peace or we do not go at all." As looked like he wanted to argue, but he held his tongue. He understood the importance of this moment. The future relationship between the collective and humanity would be shaped by what happened next. The humans agreed to host the meeting aboard the Vanguard. They prepared a conference room and made arrangements for the comfort of their guests. They did not know what the aliens ate or breathed, so they prepared a variety of options. They were nervous but excited. This was the greatest moment in human history. Commander Hayes put on his dress uniform. He had worn it only 3 times before in his career. Formal occasions, important moments, nothing compared to this. Karen Mitchell stood beside him as they waited for their guests to arrive. "Are you ready for this?" she asked quietly. Hayes took a deep breath and let it out slowly. "No one is ready for something like this, but we will do our best. That is all we can do." The airlock opened. For the first time, humans stood face to face. The universe would never be the same again. Step through the airlock and onto the human vessel. The air smelled strange. It was thick with oxygen and carried scents she could not identify. The temperature was higher than she preferred. The lighting was harsh and bright. Everything about this environment was uncomfortable. Yet the humans lived here. They thrived here. They called it home. Commander Hayes stood waiting with his officers. He was taller than had expected. His body was covered in a formal uniform made of dark fabric. His eyes were fixed on her with an expression she could not read. Human faces were difficult to interpret. They had so few color changes. "Welcome aboard the Vanguard," Hayes said. His voice was deep and steady. The translation device they had developed rendered his words into sounds could understand. "We are honored by your presence." Studied him for a long moment. This creature had evolved on a world that should have killed him. His ancestors had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. His species had clawed their way up from the mud and reached the stars in the blink of a cosmic eye. He should have been a savage, a monster, a beast. Instead, he stood before her with courtesy and dignity. He welcomed her as a guest. He treated her with respect. "Thank you for receiving us," she replied. "I am of the species. I represent the Galactic Collective, an alliance of 742 intelligent species." Hayes nodded. "I am Daniel Hayes, commander of this vessel. This is Lieutenant Corinne Mitchell, my first officer, Dr. Cole, our chief science officer, and Lieutenant Bell, our tactical officer." Looked at each of them in turn. Bell was watching her with suspicion. He did not trust her. She could see it in the way he held himself, ready to move at any moment. He was a warrior. He understood that she might be a threat. Cole was different. His eyes were bright with curiosity. He wanted to ask questions. He wanted to understand her species the way she wanted to understand his. He was a seeker of knowledge. Mitchell was calm and professional. She watched everything with careful attention. She was evaluating just as was evaluating them. A practical mind behind those strange round eyes. And Hayes. Hayes was the most interesting of them all. He carried the weight of leadership on his shoulders. He knew that every word he spoke would be remembered, yet he seemed at peace. He had accepted the enormous responsibility of this moment and was ready to bear it. "Please," Hayes said, gesturing toward a doorway. "We have prepared a room for our discussion. We hope it meets your needs." They walked through the corridors of the Vanguard, observed everything. The walls were made of metal alloys, primitive materials that the collective had stopped using thousands of cycles ago. Yet the humans had made them work. They had built a vessel capable of traveling between stars using technology that should have been obsolete. The conference room was simple but functional. A large table dominated the center. Chairs had been arranged around it. Some were human-sized. Others had been modified to accommodate guests of different body types. The humans had thought about her comfort. Such a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. They sat across from each other, humans on one side, on the other, two species meeting for the first time. "I must be honest with you," began. "Everything about your existence confuses me. You live on a Class 3 planet. By our understanding, life should not exist there. Your world should be a dead rock." Hayes smiled. It was a strange expression. His lips curved upward and his eyes seemed to brighten. The translation device indicated it was a positive gesture. "Earth is not an easy place to live," he admitted. "Our planet has tried to kill us many times. Floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, disease, war. We have faced extinction again and again. Yet you survived." "We survived. We are stubborn that way. When something tries to destroy us, we fight back. We adapt. We overcome. It is in our nature." Leaned forward. "Your species achieved in less than 200 of your years. The collective took over 10,000 cycles to reach the same level of development. How is this possible?" Cole spoke up. "We are a competitive species. We push each other to do better. When one nation reached space, others raced to match them. When one scientist made a discovery, others built upon it. We advance quickly because we are always trying to outdo each other." "Competition," repeated. The collective species had moved beyond competition long ago. They cooperated. They shared. They worked together in harmony. The idea of racing against each other seemed wasteful. "Competition, yes," Mitchell added, "but also cooperation. We compete in some areas and work together in others. This ship was built by engineers and scientists from dozens of nations. We combined our knowledge and resources to achieve something none of us could have done alone." Oz spoke for the first time. We have studied your history. You make war against your own kind. You have weapons capable of destroying your entire civilization. How can such a violent species be trusted? The room went silent. It was a harsh question but a fair one. Had wondered the same thing herself. Hayes did not flinch from the question. He met Oz's gaze directly. You are right, we have a violent history. We have done terrible things to each other. Wars, genocides, cruelties that shame us to this day. I will not deny any of it. He paused for a moment, choosing his words carefully. But we have also learned from our mistakes. Each war taught us the cost of conflict. Each tragedy pushed us toward peace. We are not perfect. We may never be perfect, but we are trying to be better. Every generation tries to be better than the one before. And the weapons, Oz pressed, the ones that could destroy your world. They still exist. We have not destroyed them. Perhaps we should. But those weapons have also kept the peace for many decades. The threat of mutual destruction has prevented the very wars they were designed to fight. It is a strange kind of peace, but it is peace nonetheless. Considered this. The logic was twisted, but she could see the sense in it. Fear of annihilation had forced humans to find other ways to resolve their conflicts. They had turned their greatest weapon into a tool for preventing war. Your species is a contradiction, she said finally. Violent yet peaceful, primitive yet advanced, fragile yet incredibly resilient. I do not fully understand you. Hayes smiled again. We do not fully understand ourselves, but we are learning. We are always learning. He extended his hand across the table. It was a human gesture of friendship and agreement. Had learned this during their earlier communications. I propose that we continue to learn together, Hayes said. Our species has much to teach each other. Let this meeting be the first step toward a lasting relationship between humanity and the collective. Looked at the extended hand. Such a simple gesture, such enormous implications. She reached out and took it. The meeting lasted for many hours. Questions were asked and answered. Fears were expressed and addressed. Two species who had never imagined each other now sat together and talked about the future. Explained the nature of the Galactic Collective. 742 species working together in peace. Shared technology. Shared resources. A civilization that spanned 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. It was everything humanity had dreamed of finding among the stars. Hayes explained humanity's journey, their rise from primitive hunters to spacefaring explorers, their struggles and triumphs, their hopes for the future. He did not hide their flaws. He did not pretend they were perfect. He told the truth and trusted that honesty would serve them better than lies. When the formal discussions ended, something unexpected happened. The barriers between the two groups began to fall. Cole found himself in deep conversation with the scientists who had accompanied. They exchanged ideas about physics and biology. Cole showed them the propulsion system of the Vanguard. They were amazed that humans had achieved interstellar capability with such primitive technology. Cole was amazed by the elegant solutions the collective had developed over millions of cycles. Karen Mitchell spoke with Oz about military matters. They discovered they had much in common. Both were warriors who hoped they would never have to fight. Both understood the terrible cost of conflict. By the end of their conversation, Oz had a new respect for human soldiers. They were not mindless savages. They were protectors of their people just like him. Bell remained cautious throughout the meeting. He watched the aliens with careful eyes. He noted their movements and studied their body language, but even he had to admit that they did not seem hostile. They seemed genuinely curious about humanity. They seemed to want peace. As the hours passed, found herself developing a strange respect for these impossible creatures. They should not exist. Their very presence violated everything she had been taught about life in the universe. Yet here they were, alive, thriving, reaching for the stars. Your species is remarkable, she told Hayes during a quiet moment. You have overcome obstacles that would have destroyed any collective species. You have achieved in centuries what took us. I do not know if I should be impressed or terrified." Hayes considered her words. "Perhaps both," he said. "We terrify ourselves sometimes. We know we are capable of great destruction. We have seen it in our history, but we are also capable of great creation, great kindness, great love. We are trying to focus on the better parts of our nature. And if you fail, then we fail, but we will keep trying. That is what humans do. We fall down and we get back up. We make mistakes and we learn from them. We face impossible challenges and we find ways to overcome them. Giving up is not in our nature." Thought about the collective. They had achieved peace and stability. They had eliminated war and conflict. They had created a civilization that had endured for millions of cycles, yet they had also become stagnant. They avoided risk. They feared change. They had stopped pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Humans were the opposite. They embraced risk. They sought out challenges. They rushed headlong into the unknown and somehow emerged victorious. It was reckless. It was dangerous. It was also incredibly inspiring. "I must return to collective space," said finally. "I must report what I have found here. The Council will need to decide how to proceed." "Will they accept us?" Hayes asked. "Will they welcome humanity into the collective?" Was silent for a long moment. The honest answer was that she did not know. Many collective species would be afraid of humans. They would see their violent history and their rapid advancement as threats. They would want to contain humanity rather than embrace them. But had looked into human eyes. She had seen their capacity for kindness and curiosity. She had witnessed their desire to learn and grow. They were not monsters. They were simply different, and the galaxy needed different. "I will speak on your behalf," she promised. "I will tell the Council what I have seen here. A species that has overcome impossible odds. A people who have faced extinction and survived. Warriors who seek peace. Explorers who reach for the stars. I believe the collective has much to gain from an alliance with humanity." Hayes nodded. "And we have much to gain from you. Knowledge, technology, a place in a larger community. We have always known we were not alone in the universe. We just needed to find you." "You did not find us," reminded him. "We found you. Or rather, we stumbled upon you while exploring a region of space we thought was empty. Your existence was an accident of discovery. The best discoveries often are." They shook hands again. Human and two species from worlds so different that they should never have met. Yet here they were, standing together, looking toward a shared future. And her crew returned to their vessel. As they prepared to depart, she took one last look at Earth through the viewport. That beautiful blue and green world that should have been a death trap. The cradle of the most surprising species the galaxy had ever produced. "Commander," Oz said quietly, "what do you think will happen when the Council learns of this?" Did not answer immediately. She watched as the vanguard began to move. The humans were continuing their journey. They were pushing outward into the unknown. They would not wait for permission from the collective. They would not let fear hold them back. They would explore and discover and grow, regardless of what the galaxy thought of them. "I think everything will change," she finally said. "For millions of cycles, the collective has been comfortable. We have been safe. We have forgotten what it means to struggle. Humans will remind us. They will challenge us to be better. They will push us to reach higher. Some will see them as a threat. I see them as a gift." The observation vessel jumped to subspace, carried with her the knowledge that would reshape galactic civilization. A new species had emerged from a death world. They were violent and peaceful, primitive and advanced, fragile and unstoppable. They were human. And the universe was about to learn what that truly meant. Back aboard the Vanguard, Commander Daniel Hayes stood on the observation deck. Corinne Mitchell joined him as they watched the alien vessel disappear into the distance. "Do you think they will accept us?" she asked. Hayes smiled. "Does it matter? We are here. We are reaching for the stars. Whether they accept us or not, we will keep going. That is what we do. Mitchell nodded. That is what we do. The Vanguard continued its voyage. Behind them, Earth shone blue and beautiful against the darkness. Ahead of them, the galaxy waited with all its wonders and dangers. Humanity had taken its first steps onto a larger stage. There would be challenges ahead, conflicts, misunderstandings, perhaps even wars. But humans had faced all of that before. They had survived ice ages and plagues and their own worst impulses. They had clawed their way up from the mud and touched the stars. Whatever the galaxy threw at them, they would face it the same way they had faced everything else. Together, stubborn, unbreakable, human. The stars had no idea what was coming.